Well, it was a moment that needed to happen.
Yep.
You're right. It doesn't happen too often where the third highest person in Republican leadership in the House of Representatives is moved out of that position. But when you can't have the Republican spokesperson reciting Democrat talking points, you can't have the person who's supposed to speak for the Republican conference taking positions that 90% of our party disagrees with, and you can't have the leader of the Republican House conference going against the guy who got 74 million Americans to support him, the leader of our party, the leader of that America First populist party rooted in conservative principles. So it was a change that needed to happen. I was for it happening 3 months ago, but today was a good thing and a good step for us as a party, and I think as a country.
Okay. President Trump has endorsed New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to replace Liz Cheney as #3 Republican in the House. Some are concerned she's not conservative enough. We've all heard the numbers. She didn't vote with Trump as much as Cheney. You've worked with Stefanik during the president's first impeachment defense.
Yeah.
What do you make of this choice?
No, she's a good communicator, as you indicate, Rob. She's got the support of President Trump, the support of the minority leader McCarthy, and our whip Scalise. Yeah. She's got an A+ rating with the NRA. She's been endorsed by the Susan B. Anthony list. And like I said, she's a darn good communicator. We saw that in play, in action during the first impeachment. So I think she'll do a nice job as leading our party. And she has, while she may not have voted the way I would like to see votes in the past, she's not spoke out against the president consistently like Liz Cheney did. And remember, with Congresswoman Cheney, it's not just what she said since the election. It's what she did before the election as well, in my mind. Right. Particularly, I always point to the Russian bounty story. When that story came out last summer, just a few months before the presidential election, our biggest election, everyone knew it was bogus, but Liz then tweets against the president that day when all she had to do, particularly as the Republican Party spokesperson,
keep your mouth
pick
shut.
Up the phone, or not, you're right, not say anything, or pick up the phone and called the White House. Mark Meadows would have talked to her. I know he would have, former colleague of ours. Mark would have talked to her. The president would have talked to her and told Mike Pompeo would have told her. So just pick up the phone and call. Don't tweet against the president.
Yeah. On a story that ends up being fake. I mean, how priceless is all that?
And you knew it, Rob. You and I knew it was fake at the time. Like, this doesn't make sense. This can't be true. We know this is not true. So why not just do the good thing for your country and for your party?
Yeah, and I want to say one thing, because Stefanik gets a lot of grief about how she voted. We have to remember that Liz Cheney is representing Wyoming, right? That's a very, very red state. Stefanik is in New York. She's a blue state Republican. She has to ride a different kind of line politically, and I think that is important to remember. Her people think differently. It's it's a blue state, so I think that's also fair as well.
No, very fair point. And when she won her district the first time, it was President Obama carried it by a large percentage. So. That shows she can attract Democrats to our party, which, oh, by the way, President Trump did pretty well over the last several years also.
Exactly. I want to get to the crisis at the border here in just a moment. But with everything that's going on, Democrats are still really fixated on January 6th. They love January 6th. So does the media, accusing Republicans of being election deniers. Today you quoted some remarks made by Hillary Clinton. I love this, by the way, at a hearing talking to former Trump acting AG Jeff Rosen. Take a listen to this, everybody.
On October 2020, just a month before our last presidential election, she was referring to the 2016 presidential election, and she said it was stolen from her. Is she wrong?
She is wrong.
Yeah, she is wrong, because the election was valid in 2016. President Trump won. So when we talk about revisionist history that we've heard from the Democrats, when we talk about the big lie, their nominee, as recently as last October, was saying the election in 2016 was stolen.
I mean, it's priceless when you hear these details. I also thought we're going to talk about Paul Gosar later in the show. He laid some really heavy punches as well.
Yeah.
What'd you make of today?
Well, yeah, and they always want to talk about January 6, 2021, but they want to conveniently forget January 6, 2017, when Jim McGovern, Democrat chair of the Rules Committee, objected to Wyoming, the very first state called, because we call them alphabetical order, objected to accepting the electors from Wyoming, a state President Trump won by like 30 points. And of course, Maxine Waters objected on January 6, 2017 to Wyoming, the only state that I think President Trump won by more than he won Alabama, Maxine Waters objected to that. So Democrats are allowed to object. It's just Republicans can't object. Jim Jordan's not allowed to object to Pennsylvania, where they unconstitutionally changed their election law in 3 ways, went around the legislature. I'm not allowed to object to that, but they can then. So the hypocrisy from the left and from the Democrats and the mainstream press ability to not talk about that are just amazing to me.
Yeah, no, we all have to remember that the 2017 or 2016 election was stolen. The 2020 was not. That's the official memo from the overlords.
Well, and they
that control the media
Rob,
and
3 years, 3 years of the Mueller investigation that led then to the Ukrainian impeachment on all this baloney. So they kept it up for 3 years on a complete hoax. We just want to investigate and find out what exactly did happen, because lots of Americans have questions.
Yeah, and lots of rules, like you said, were changed because of COVID. I mean, there's a much better case for it in this one. It is so funny. I do want to talk about the border here. We got to get it in. DHS reporting the most border crossings in a single month in 21 years. The numbers are just astounding right now. Most are single adults. We've seen drugs come across. We've seen guns. Tonight there are some rumblings out there about the Biden administration perhaps restarting some kind of work on the wall, maybe building like several miles of Trump's wall, which is a big story popping right now. But you're hearing something maybe a little bit different to that rhetoric. What are you hearing?
Our sources tell us this is the levee. Now, this is important for agriculture interests there on the border, but it's the levee. It's not the actual wall. We were down there a month ago, and we saw what both of these issues are about. We definitely need the wall, but the people who are engaged in agriculture need the levee as well. So we think this is what's happening is the levee. But in a little over 100 days, think about this administration. We went from a secure border to a crisis. We went from energy independence to lines at the pump, and we went from peace in the Middle East to now over 1,000 rockets have been fired on our best friend and ally, Israel. That's what the Biden administration has given us. And this is how chaotic a situation they've created with their ridiculous policies and their lack of dealing with the things they need to deal with. So I think the American people understand now just how bad this administration is really doing.